Welcome to the AI Chat podcast. I'm your host, Jaden Schaefer. Today on the podcast with us, we have Suman Kanuganti, who is from Personal.ai, and he's going to be talking to us a little bit about what got him into this space. Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? I record and publish podcasts on a platform called Spotify for Podcasters, and I absolutely love it. Essentially, you can upload from your phone or computer, and it distributes to every platform that plays podcasts. They support video podcasts, and you can make money on the platform with ads or even podcast subscriptions, something that has made my life so much easier as a podcaster. So if you're interested, I highly recommend you give it a try. You can download the Spotify for Podcast app, or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your podcast today. So thank you so much for joining us. Would you mind telling the guests a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, Jaden. My background, I'm a engineer for almost like first half of my life, robotics based. I also have a business background. But generally, I picked a passion of creating products for people. I always get excited when you create experiences for people to touch and feel, kind of elevate the day-to-day activities that they're doing. That's kind of motivates me and excites me. I created a company called Ira before Personal.ai. Ira was a technology that uses both AI as well as augmented reality, but with human for people who are visually challenged. So today we basically unlock all kinds of experiences for blind community and pretty much the entire United States, and all the retail stores kind of, provide that as an accommodation for people. I started Personal.ai 3 years ago with the core premise of, being able to create a model to represent one individual. And I'll tell you more about it, but since you asked me about my background, that's a little bit about my background.
Very, very cool. So what kind of got you interested in, well, actually, perhaps give us a little rundown on what Personal.ai does for those that don't know. Explain what you're shooting to do there.
Yeah, so Personal.ai is a model. It's a language model that is grounded in one's facts, opinions, and perspectives of an individual. So it is designed to reflect and speak on behalf of an individual, right? The most interesting thing about Personal.ai is you probably, or the audience probably have long discussions about large language models. We actually started developing the opposite of a large language model. We call them small language models or personal language models. They're actually tiny. They are 120 billion parameters. They are grounded in one's memory. These models have long-term memory. They also have attribution back into the data. But obviously it is not it doesn't know everything that the world knows. Like a large language model, but it knows you, and it's an ultra-personal experience to the point where, it speaks like you within your own facts as well, not just style and voice, but also your facts and opinions.
That's so interesting. I think especially today in a day and age where I've actually heard a lot of pushback from people using tools like ChatGPT or other large language models saying, like, the responses it gives me don't actually reflect my opinions. It has biases. Perhaps that came from the company itself. Perhaps that came from people training it. And, a lot of people kind of complain about that for all sorts of different reasons, right? There's political, there's religious, there's all sorts of ideas that it's really hard to define what's correct, what's right or wrong from, theological or ideological perspectives. And so I see a lot of appeal to having something like Personal.ai. How do you go about training one of these models, right? If someone's interested in getting a model of themselves, how does that work?
No, it's pretty fascinating for me as well, because obviously we started this company 3 years ago, and we started working on our long-term memory, the models, the different transformer architecture that we have, and then ChatGPT happened. But on the if you put that in the perspective, open AI large language models have been in development for like 5 years or so, and then it suddenly started hitting consumer market, after 8 years or 9 years or so. So I always tell, the people around me is like, hey, Personal.ai started 3 years ago. That's when we started our models, and we need to make it available for people to train it super easy. What are the systems that you have where without needing a developer, you can have a user trained model, right? So we basically developed applications on top of our models where people can ingest any sorts of data that you would wish. So that data could be mostly authored content, right? The author content would be your articles, your drive, your existing autobiography. You can choose to take some of the historical conversations that you have had in other chat applications as well, and then you can use that as well. So it depends on what kind of authored content that you have that surrounds you, that represents you. But you can think about it as, if you do have an existing journal, or if you do have an existing autobiography, or do have existing conversation, you can use that to create a model of yourself. And we have a mechanism where you can use the applications for ongoing communications, so that way the training is not once and done. The training is like ongoing. Because it's a small model, it updates instantaneously.
Very cool. What does that look like from a practical perspective, right? Like, let's say I would like to train a model for myself. Am I just going to like a folder and uploading like as much content about myself as I can, and the model's taking in that type of content? Or like, what does that look like for a user?
Yeah. So for a user, you essentially have like a chat-like application. So if you could imagine ChatGPT, right? We have our own native applications, and you can essentially tell your AI anything that you would want it to remember or to be trained on, right? Okay. So it could be like text data, and that text data could be a simple statement, or a large paragraph, or a huge article, or a huge document. You can choose to bring in like existing documents and upload them as well if you would wish. We are trying to make the process simple by getting the data from other locations. We have Twitter, for example, like, people who has been collecting or authoring the content on Twitter, has large amounts of content. They can simply connect Twitter, and then boom, everything, will be synced or added to your memory. So as long as that content that you think will represent you in the first person and author, if that is your intention, yes, you can push all the data by simply a messaging interface.
Very cool. Are you thinking about like the integration of like video? Obviously, text is a good way to integrate someone's personal audio. But let's say someone has a YouTube channel, or like myself with a podcast. All of my thoughts and opinions that I share on here. Is there a way to pull some of that in?
Yeah. So the input is as simple as, if you do have YouTube videos, you can send the YouTube link to your AI to learn from as well. So it will extract and it will send. If you do have like Medium articles, you can do that too. If you connect Google Drive and then have Gdoc, that can be pushed as well. It doesn't have audio transcriptions built in, but people generally use like third-party transcriptions and then push the data in.
Okay. Very cool. So who's the main target audience that's currently using this, and where do you kind of see this going in the future? Like, is this authors looking to write books? Is that, or is it just people looking to share their opinions? Like, who's using Personal.ai right now?
Yeah, so we are fairly new to the market, right? And that's one of the reasons why, we are actually having this conversation as well. When I say fairly new to the market, we've been experimenting with people for almost like 1 year, and then shaping up our products and APIs and needs and everything else. Mm-hmm. So since we went GA, which happened in April, we are seeing a lot more traction on people who are interested in their personal brands and elevating their personal brands, right? Okay. So these are solopreneurs, mostly, small business owners mostly. And the most interesting thing is, these people have something of them, which is personal data, because their personal data is their personal brand, and it is their currency, right? Mm-hmm. And we are very much focused on individuals. So it's more like a B2B2C kind of a model, where people who would want to serve a small group of community, and that community could be 10, 50 or 100 or even 1,000. They are creating their personal AIs. They are integrating into their existing communities, or colleagues, or clients, if you wish. And the beautiful part is, the native applications also supports native messaging, meaning you can invite friends or communities and create AI lounges and invite people for a prompt party, if you will, to talk to your own AI and geek out. So those are all the experiences that we have unlocked. We just literally 2 days ago released our mobile application as well.
Oh, very exciting. And is that called Personal.ai?
Yes, it is Personal.ai. To search in the App Store, since we are still working on optimization of search, It's Personal AI Mobile, and then that's
Okay.
the app. Or you can simply go to personal.ai/download, and it's a brand new application.
Very exciting. Very cool. Well,
Point that we haven't even launched yet. We haven't even told the world yet. We are just serving our own people right now who are in the system.
okay, very cool. I'll have to grab that and check it out after. So where do you see this going? Let's say, 3, 4, 5 years from now, where do you see AI or personal.ai kind of growing to, and who is it serving?
Yeah. So I think one of the core principles that we haven't touched on about personal.ai is every person gets their own memory, meaning the memory data is not shared between two people. And every person also gets their own model. In other words, the model is not combining the data or aggregating the data, which is very popular in the large language model scenario, but everybody gets their own unique model. And this data, which is the memory, as well as the model, belongs to the person, meaning they actually own the data. That means we are not allowed to see it. We are not allowed to sell it, no ads, but they can use their own model if they would want to, and then monetize it as well, right? So today, the most popular use case that we are unlocking, given how good these models are to represent you, is the daily communication, right? So if there is incoming message that is coming from your friend or client or community member or a customer, your AI will draft that response for you, and it is since grounded in your own facts, and it is learning almost instantaneously every day. It does 70% of the job for you, and you can choose to either review it and approve to send that communication back, either using native application or like integrations such as iMessage or other places. Or you can set yourself into autopilot. So if you set yourself in autopilot, that means technically it's Jaden's AI version that people can talk to, right? But it's not just like dependent on super high celebrities, but it's now available for anybody to be able to create an AI version for themselves. Self-service, user trained.
Mm.
In the future, because of the principles that are attached to this personal AI, which is we want personal AI to be the starting and the ending point of everything. And it is private to them, meaning only individual people will get to decide what goes in it. They will have full control of it. So we see a future where, future personalization, like services, for example, when you open the app, typically you send GPS coordinates or you send information to a service for them to provide you some suggestions. So let's say a Uber or an OpenTable or Airbnb, right? We see a world where most of the services can integrate into your personal AI to give you the ultra personal experience without compromising the data integrity of the individual, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think the starting and the ending point of everything that you will have on the internet presence will be your personal AI model because it belongs to you.
That's super cool. And something that you said made me think. You said, people will be able to monetize this. Just out of curiosity, have you thought about like the possibility of, right, someone trains or creates an AI model of themselves, and then like having them being able to have like an API so other people can like ping off of there? Is that something that is future, or is this more close?
No, that's part of the architecture. So think about every person, right? Every human being at center. And then surrounding them is their long-term memory. And that memory is time-bound, meaning as you go by your life, your memory is growing and you can capture it at every period of time. So it's all like time-bound memory, okay? Now, the model, which is personal language model, is an ensemble of many different models that will be trained, which is grounded on your long-term memory. And each of the models has an API. So think about that API is API to your model, which is API to you, right?
Yeah.
Now that API is what is used for our personal AI native applications, but a good number of people today are using that API and taking their personal AI model in the places where they already are. Either it be communities or websites or Discord or Telegram, they're already doing those integrations. So that way you have your AI in the mix in these communication settings. Now, you can think about using the API for your agents as well. So agents are the ones who are taking tasks or doing tasks or, like actions. For example, drafting an email for you, right? So that's an agent. Creating a tweet for you, that's another agent. Doing an LinkedIn for you, another agent. But at the core, it's still you. It's your memory. It's your model. That's the representation of you.
That's so interesting. It made me think of how cool it would be if like let's say you take like a company, right? So you got like 20 people in the company, all of them go and make like a personal AI for whatever they're like for themselves. And then you try to like test yourself against the AI version, and you like get all the people to start like an AI company essentially, where there's all the different employees trying
This is what happens in our company. Every person in our company. So by the way, I mean, of course, we are building personal AI. So every team member has their own AI.
Yeah.
We all have our own lounges, right?
Cool.
I have a Suman autopilot lounge. So customers and people actually who come in, that's where people go in to prompt with my AI. So technically, whatever questions that you are asking, Jaden, you can interview my AI version.
I should have just gotten that on the podcast. I could have saved you some time.
I sent you the link. So s.personal.ai. So you can technically simply go in there, click chat with me. That will come to your application. This is a human in the loop experience. So in other words, Jaden, we've been talking to what now, 15 minutes or so?
Yeah.
There is a element of trust that we develop, right? It's like, okay, I know Jaden. When he comes over, I will start having in the co-pilot experience, meaning if you ask me like, Suman, like, how's it going? My AI will draft a response for me and I will choose to send it. But when I put you in the autopilot, you can just simply go back and forth with my AI in a conversational mode. So other small businesses right now are essentially building every individual's AI. And the beautiful part in here is, we have seen the AI versions of people out there, right? There is Elon Musk AI, there is Karen's AI, there is like influencer people's AI.
Yeah.
It's primarily dependent on large language model. It takes like extreme amount of effort to be able to ground it. It still hallucinates, right? Our goal is to make this almost accessible to every person, right? Not just influencers, because influencer models are possible today because their data is already public and it's already indexed by large language model.
Right.
Nobody knows Suman and Jaden. You must be popular, but still the amount of information. But you have your personal mode. Like you have your personal brand. Like AI chats is your brand, right? So how do you invent that brand? Like, so that's where we want to make it accessible. So now you can have your own model of yourself.
I love that. That's so cool. Okay, so this is giving me so many questions. This is actually such a cool AI project. This is one of the cooler AI projects I've covered recently. So this is my question for you. Number one is, what does that look like as far as like the resources, the bandwidth, and everything required for training like one person's AI model, right? I know right now there's like this huge shortage of like A100 chips from NVIDIA. Everyone's like, fighting over trying to be able to train AI models and stuff. What's the resources, realistically, let's say you had like everyone on Facebook wanted their own personal AI. So you got to get 1 billion people to train their own. Like, what would that look like for resources wise?
Yeah. And that's where the best part is. It's almost like the secret sauce. And I cannot wait to be out there and give this to millions of people, because you know why? These 120 million parameters are super cost effective because they are small. They scale horizontally. We don't need to fight big tech for all the GPU compute. In a way, I would also make the statements such as like they're environmental friendly, because you know why? They actually run on your mobile devices, right? So as of today, these are 120 million parameters, like in less than 1 gigs in size. And we have identified few chips to essentially move these models onto the edge itself, on your computer, on your phone. That does not have dependency on the large language model. That means you don't need all the investments that otherwise will have.
Right.
So yeah, because just think about it. What we are trying to achieve is, our use case is not creating a model of world's information or the internet. Our goal is to create a model of one individual. It's a 120 million parameters.
Yeah, I love that, especially because I feel like I've heard a lot of people, of course, complain that ChatGPT just sucked up everyone's data, and now it's
identity is super important. Like, yeah. So here's the fun part, right? I got into creating this project 3 years ago because I had this like extreme desire of being able to communicate, have conversation with a person who taught me a lot, and he passed away because of pancreatic cancer. So there was this constant mantra of like, what would Larry do? or, I wish I could talk to Larry's AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, we as human beings, we establish trust with a group of people that are surrounding us. So even if you're seeking advice or getting an opinion, it's much more about researching and being able to land to your own conclusion versus being able to talk to one or two people that you trust and getting their opinions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of like accessing people with, each other to an extent where we are not just bounded physically by the time and the capacity that we have is mind-blowing, right?
Yeah.
That is, man, I lost my train of thought. So the reason like this is all happening is because fundamentally and principally we said this needs a memory. Large language model cannot solve it. And my co-founder, CTO, MIT graduate, super created 5 different AI startups, Sharon Zhang, she had the foresight saying that, Suman, if you really want attribution, if you really want it to be private, if you really want it to be grounded in one person that doesn't hallucinate, this was 2020 because nobody knows large language models then. She said large language models is not the way to go. We have to start from the scratch. There are a lot of existing stuff we reused, like open source model, transformer architecture, etc., but it is a contrary approach to the modeling, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can even just think of a cool use case where let's say you have to make a really important business decision or family decision or life decision, and it's very time sensitive. You call up your, maybe I'm calling up my dad to ask him for advice. He's busy. And then I'm like, oh shoot, he's off in another country. He's not going to be on, but I got to make this decision right now. So I just go over to his AI chat. This might not be dead perfect, but I could get a pretty good idea of what his advice would be in a time sensitive way when a person isn't actually physically available. Super interesting. Really, really cool idea. What are you looking at as far as monetization, pricing? How does that play in? What does that look like for this?
Yeah. So we are making it available for anybody to create their memory and train their AIs for free at this time. And the intention is everybody gets 2 personas, personal and professional. Persona is nothing but a part of your life, right?
Uh-huh.
For example, you and my relationship, let's say, is professional, but you have, your family relationship as personal, right? You can choose which category or which persona that you would want other people to access when they are talking to you in autopilot or copilot, right? So normally people who would upgrade to a $40 per month subscription plan, they have things or access such as greater integrations, greater API access. If you do have a lot more following, north of 100 people, 200 people, where there's a lot more demand to the AI, then it goes into a little bit more, custom pricing as well. So currently it's accessible to everybody for free to begin. And then there is a $40 per month pricing for greater integrations, faster access, and taking it to other places. And then as the demand for the model itself grows, then it goes into, kind of custom solutions.
Very cool. I love it. That's super interesting. So I know you've been working on this for the last 3 years or so. First off, what kind of made you decide you wanted to take this step on this project? I know you mentioned Larry. Was that kind of what played a role into creating this?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that was the genesis. To be very specific, the project I kicked off in September 2019 is when I started working into just understanding what I'm dealing with. Jesus. I mean, I didn't know where to start. This is very vague. And back then, it isn't a space where a lot of information was available. Even, I knew I needed AI as a technologist and an engineer, but I myself didn't have hands-on AI experience itself. So first 6 months is all about researching, what goes into it, understanding memory, understanding transformer architecture, just reading a whole bunch of stuff, and then trying to find my team. When I decided, okay, this is what we are gonna do, which is try to figure out a model that we can build for people to talk to, right?
Yeah.
And that had to be representing the person. And then that's when I found Sharon, my CTO, which is my co-founding member now. And then first 6 months is, again, experimenting, researching, talking to people. What does it mean to them? Ideating. we took almost 2 years to put together the core foundation systems,
Mm-hmm.
the structures, the models, putting together the API, and then we took another year to create applications on top of it and test with people. So now we are ready to go to market.
That's very exciting. How did you meet your CTO? I know a lot of people interested in new startups or taking their companies to the next level with AI are kind of interested. What was your process on that?
I mean, it was very deliberate because previously I was already running a startup, so I had some ideas on the kind of person that I would want. Specifically for a company like Personal AI, because one, it's original thinking, so it requires a little bit of like original understanding of the technology and working towards a solution that may not be widely popular or available. So we need like novel thinking. So I went through a search process, believe it or not. I had some friends or recruiting firms who accepted my request to find a co-founding partner, and I spoke to 120 people.
Holy smokes! Wow.
And I showed her the spreadsheet after I got her. That is the process I took. But I took my time. I took my time to find the right person. My other co-founder is Christy Kaiser. So I worked with her at my previous company. She's my design partner, because it's also required a little bit of like, what does it mean to be talking to the AI? Now it's pretty obvious, okay, you chat with the AI, right? But we created these chat interfaces to basically train and, chat with somebody's AI, and then ChatGPT happened. And then it was great because there's tons of awareness and we were heading in the right direction. Then, we had to double down in the conversation and the chat.
That's super cool. What did that kind of look like? I mean, you've been working on this thing for a number of years, and all of a sudden ChatGPT launches, kind of the end of last year. Did that feel good? Was that like, oh my gosh, so much validation, we're going in the right direction? Like, what was, I guess, your idea? Is this kind of went from being like AI was like kind of a trendy thing in like tech and stuff, and then to all of a sudden like it is like everything?
Yeah, no, I mean, it happened so fast. So, I mean, I had to like, sit and kind of on the hindsight, think through every week what was happening in the space. But I can tell you that things were happening so fast, and there's a lot of momentum, a lot of awareness, and a lot of credibility as well, a lot of appreciation for the amount of work that we were doing for years, right?
Yeah.
Because there's one thing about like building the product, building the application. There is another thing about like trying to like tackle something unknown and then put together a sequence of execution steps for you to be able to figure it out, because you make mistakes as well, and you have to pivot and you have to change things. So I guess what could I say? ChatGPT and that blowing up was good because there is a general acceptance about the AI. Like even 1 year ago, at the same time when we were pitching like Personal AI to investors or anybody else, was like,
yeah.
So like, what are you talking about? But now it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And what are the applications, right? Like, what is the mode?
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are tons and tons of AI companies too, Now every big tech, every company wants to create Personal AI. And our definition of Personal AI is a little bit unique. Like, we want it to be true to what it should be, which is representing a person and that is owned by them. It's not just merely an assistant that can do like 1 or 2 tasks, or you can talk to a AI bot for a specific reason. That's all good. There are use cases for it. But for us, Personal AI as an assistant is underselling. I think there is a lot more beautiful thing about this core idea of having this as an asset to you that belongs to you, that runs over a period of time, that is not compromising the principles of like data ownership, that is not aggregating with everything, that does not belong to the company, that belongs to you. So there is a lot goes into making a true Personal AI. And so the downside of this whole like bubble of AI is the market is confused, right? Because there is a lot more money that is getting poured in. But sometimes when you have money and you don't know what to do, you will also confuse the market. So you create chaos. And I do feel there are players in the industry that is creating chaos. So we have to navigate through that chaos, right? Because we still have to stick to what we think is the truthful way of creating a trustworthy AI that belongs and serves people, right? So anyway, so I think there is good, but there is also the downsides of whatever is happening, because now you got to figure out what is what and who is who. And we are, instead of confusing the market, we got to work towards making that clear as well. One of the reasons why I want to hop on the podcast and talk to people.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so one question quick is, you talked about, there's some companies that aren't doing it the correct way, right? There's a bunch of money coming into the industry, and there's players, like you said, that are creating chaos. Who are those players that you believe that are fundamentally, or even if it's not a specific company, what the concepts that you believe are fundamentally creating the quote unquote chaos or kind of pushing it in the wrong direction?
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Okay, we are getting a little bit political. I won't name the companies, but I will tell you what I think is not right.
Yeah.
What I think is not right is misrepresenting an identity of an individual, whether you are seeking permission or whether you're not seeking permission, meaning you have to have permission to represent somebody's AI or somebody's identity. Because what makes human is our identity, right?
Right.
Now, the thing is, it makes like good entertainment, good business, good fun, but at the expense of that identity. Are they okay with it? If they're okay with it, that's great. But I think there needs to be some empathy and some respect to what we are doing in the industry. And I think if we are not doing it right, then it's unethical. Now, investors are, business people will say, who cares? I don't care. I'm like, whoever. Like, I want to make some money. Let get people to engage with it. Who cares about privacy? Who cares about identity? Great. That's their business. We are not going to do that business, but I think it's wrong.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I like that concept because it definitely, and I think, to be honest, I think a majority of the population, now not necessarily the owners of a lot of the AI companies and not necessarily, as you mentioned, the investors, but I think there's probably a majority of the population that would agree with your sentiment, which is people, when they're creating this content, if someone like OpenAI sucks in all the data from the whole world, and like I can go to OpenAI and say, in the voice of Stephen King, write me a book outline. Okay, now write the book, now write the chapters. And all of a sudden it's like, well, Stephen King never actually was able to monetize the usage of that. Is that ethical, right? Then there's that whole question. And I think a lot of people would agree with you that it would like to monitor or to, compensate those people. I'm curious though, from your perspective, or from your guys' story, what did that look like when you were starting Personal.ai? Is this something that you bootstrapped or self-funded? Did you get investors from the beginning? What did that look like for you as far as funding this company?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we do have investors, but our investors are aligned with our principles.
Yeah.
So first year was self-funded, so basically me and Sharon. By second year, we needed, team and to build things. So it is 2021. David Magerman is our lead investor. He's also a Stanford AI guru. He's also a scientist. He's the man behind creating algorithms around high frequency trading, like hedge fund trading.
Okay.
At Renaissance Technologies. So he saw through what we were trying to achieve. He's also very much oriented around people, identity, privacy, create value, positive some value for everybody. Being able to have these AIs like make money and create value, into the future forever.
Right.
Like I know for the fact my AI is already like valuable to not just my team members but my family already, right?
Yeah,
So
sure.
the fact that my AI is gonna live forever into the future, even after I die, is already like value creating for me. So anyway, yeah. So we it's a seed company. We are actually like doing our next round of financing, going into our Series A as we go to the market and get people their AIs.
Very exciting. Very exciting. So then how did you actually go about meeting David?
Oh, we simply went to TechCrunch Disrupt and then did a big stunt.
What did
We
you
did
do?
we did a demo of my AI that speaks like me, and it would predict what I would want to say next based on what I'm saying now.
Wow. Okay. Very cool. That's very cool. Was that stressful? Putting.
Well, yeah, it was testable, but it's like one-off model, right?
Right.
Meaning it's a proof of concept to
Right.
essentially show the promise. And then we took another 2 years to basically build the infrastructure and, give ability for anybody to do the same things. Yeah.
Very, very cool. And so then I guess after you did that at TechCrunch Disrupt, did he come out and reach out to you, or he?
Yeah.
That.
There were a few ones that reached out. But most interesting thing about David was he had that foresight of like, these are all the things that are needed. Can you attribute the response back to the core data? Yes. Can you attribute like how much personal it is, like with some sort of a score, and tell if it is real or if it is not? Yes. Like, so these are the issues that comes up today, like with a large language model. These are the issues that we normally talk, in New York Times. Like people talk about ethics, people talk about bias, we talk about hallucination. We talked about, what response is attributed to whom, right? If, Jaden's content is out there, and if a large language model uses your content, is that attribution going back to you, right? Those are all the issues that exist today. And I would want to say, I don't want to say like personal AI is the solution, but we have architected a system where the bias is like down to the individual level. The understanding of ethics is down to an individual person of what they think is right or wrong. So the power goes to the people.
That's very cool. Man, that's incredible. I absolutely love what you're doing at Personal.ai. And I'm assuming you said you'll be probably raising another round soon as you go to market, looking at your Series A. Do you have any kind of idea of a timeline on when you guys are doing that?
I guess few months, this is summer right now. So I guess most deals comes together,
Yeah.
summer. So we'll see.
Very exciting. Well, I'm super excited. Really cool that you guys have the iOS and Android app out, or the mobile app out for this.
Not Android. iOS is out. Android is to come.
Okay, it's to come. Very exciting. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing a little bit about what you guys are doing. If people want to be able to find out more about Personal.ai, or if they would like to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in contact?
Very easy. Personal.ai is our website. Can't go wrong with it. And I am at the letter S, like simply s.personal.ai is my brand page. If you go there, you will simply see chat with me. And if you follow the link, you will land in the application. You will talk to me with human in the loop. And if you want to talk to my AI, I'll simply set you to autopilot.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, it's been absolutely incredible talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I'll definitely leave a link to that in the description for the show notes. But for the listeners, thanks so much for listening to the AI Chat podcast today, for tuning in, and we will see you next time.